This is the Macau Grand Prix, an event that is prestigious to the FF1M feeder series. Day 1 we will be covering FF3M, FGT3, but first, race 1 of the FF4M Nippon series, which will see Daisuke Sakiya start from pole position ahead of Yuji Wada, and then the top 6 are as follows: Makoto An, Hideki Soken, Masahiro Sakura, and Satoru Takamaki. Worth mentioning that the top 4 from each region will go through to race in next season's FF3M, and confirmed already are Hunter Donoghue, Charles Eaton, Bruno Ortis and John Hayes from the Sud-Am Pan-Am series. And from the Euro series we have Caterina Caracciola, Massimiliano Fagioli, Tony Fisher and Alexandra Ferreira. In terms of the Nippon series, it seems pretty much confirmed that Ju Young Park, Daisuke Sakiya, Hideki Soken will all go through, but there is a tightly contested battle for the final slot between Yuji Wada and Satoru Takamaki, with the advantage going to Wada at the moment by a single point. That's why he was quite keen to take the lead quite early from this race into the tight Lisboa corner. When I say tight, there's Emily Davidson crashing out, just showing how narrow the exit can be. And another driver falling foul was Zikri Yang, who, after a spirited battle with another rival, just seemed to lose concentration and smash into the outside wall of Lisboa corner. Keep an eye out for that corner during the feeder series, because that is a tricky one. But it was Yuji Wada who took a very important victory by nearly 9 seconds from Makoto An, Daisuke Sakiya taking third ahead of Masahiro Sakura, and then completing the top 8 are Hideki Soken, Satoru Takamaki, Sora Suzuki and Paul Engels. And that victory proving very important for Wada as he extends the gap between himself and Takamaki. As you can see here, it's 110 points for Sakiya, 9 points ahead of Ju Young Park, and then on 72 points Hideki Soken, and then there you can see Yuji Wada now with an 11-point buffer over Satoru Takamaki. We'll find out which one of those two will get the final slot into next season's FF3M. So onto the FGT3 Super Cup Series, a series which has gone through a debut year in 2014. 3 different drivers have won races, and they include Lucas Di Grassi, Sam Bird and Bruno Senna, but it's Nelson Piquet who will start from pole position ahead of Sam Bird. You can see Lucas Di Grassi third, leading an all South American or Central American, wherever the region may be, row 2, with Gutierrez, former FJR driver, starting 4th. As you can see, there are a lot of driver changes that occur due to the nature of this particular series, and Alexander Rossi will be making his debut, having driven for the Danish racing team in FF2M. So the 5 lights go out and Nelson Piquet gets away very well. He holds on to the lead so far, and not a good start at all for Sam Bird and Alexander Rossi. In fact, Sam Bird's not done too badly. It's Lucas Di Grassi who got balked on the outside, and he's trying to retake 3rd position off of Gutierrez. They're all driving Maserati S4s. So into the tight Lisboa corner. You can see Gutierrez getting back ahead of Di Grassi into Lisboa. He's holding on at the exit, and you can see Basta Maldonado as well in the field, and crashing into the barrier goes Oliver Turvey, and there's another driver stuck. It's Nick Yaloli, and reversing out is Turvey. But Yaloli's not having any of that, so this is coming around the final corner, R bend, and it's Nelson Piquet who leads in the Pashtarot MRD-engined Maserati. 1 minute 57 is the lap time. Sam Bird is second for the moment, ahead of Esteban Gutierrez, who gains that position over Lucas Di Grassi at the start. Bruno Senna sits 5th with Alexander Rossi in 6th position, and then completing the top 8, Basta Maldonado and another former FJR driver in the form of Guido van der Garde. In 9th place we've got, I believe that is Fabio Lima, the former Spaniel driver, and I think 10th position must be Felipe Nasr, and then Julian Palmer sits in 11th. Trying to work out the names on the tower on the left-hand side, but it's still a very useful feature nonetheless. So they're rounding this magnificent circuit. Nick Yaloli's in the pits to repair some damage, as is Oliver Turvey. There you can see the brightly coloured red and yellow machine pulling into the pit box. It's the Toscana Racing. Sam Bird sets a new fastest lap. He drives for the Novus team. As through the long main straight with 2 kinks to punctuate the gap between the start-finish straight and Lisboa is Nelson Piquet, braking hard, and there you can see further back Senna, Rossi, Maldonado, then Van der Garde, and it's Felipe Nasr who has just got ahead of Fabio Lima. There's Alfonso Celis. Exolite's test driver, Kazuki Nakajima, Adeli Fong, and I think Eduardo Matara is also in the field as well. We've also got Alice Powell, who's in 20th position. As coming round to complete his 5th lap now is Nelson Piquet. And you can see Sam Bird is closing in. The gap is just 3/4 of a second as they cross the line, and it's a 10-lap race. So there's time for Sam Bird to make his move if he does indeed get close enough. No change in the top 8 so far. Since the first lap, it's still Gutierrez in 3rd with Lucas de Grassi 4th, leading the 2 Brazilians in terms of himself and Senna, but it is Nelson Piquet who leads, another Brazilian. Very South American heavy field is this. We've got 6 of them in the top 6, depending on where you class Mexico. And I must say they've done a very good job on the circuit, as the cars weave their way in between the buildings. I'd like to see Melco hairpin, because that is a notoriously tight hairpin. But at the moment they're going through, I believe this will be the Solitude S's. And I think there's a turn called San Francisco Hill as well. Here is a tight right, which Piquet negotiates no problem at all. It looks as if he's pulling away a little bit from Sam Bird on this particular lap. Let's see what happens as we go through the final sector. And in fact, we are on the final lap, and Piquet has now pulled out a 1.8 second lead over Sam Bird. And once again, the order remaining unchanged between the top 8. Gutierrez still 3rd, de Grassi still 4th. And Bruno Senna 5th. Here's the tight Melco hairpin coming up now. You can see very tight and very narrow on the exit as well. It's no surprise that the yellow flags are out there on the very first lap of this particular race. In real life, racing at Macau. So just 2 more corners for Nelson Piquet to negotiate now. There's one of them. And the circuit widens dramatically into the final corner, our bend. It's going to be Nelson Piquet who takes his first win of the season, believe it or not. But deserved nonetheless, having dominated from pole position, kept Sam Bird in check, and holding on. The gap was 1.8 seconds in the end, although it was Sam Bird who set the fastest lap of the race. That had been on the early stages, I think it was on lap 2. Gutierrez takes 3rd for Blue Spirit ahead of Lucas de Grassi. Then we got Bruno Senna, Alexander Rossi, Pastor Maldonado and Guido van der Garde completing the top 8. And there you can see further back the 2 drivers that pitted. Unsurprisingly, they were 21st and 22nd, although it was Nick Lolly ahead of Oliver Turvey. So the championship looks like this. Lucas de Grassi is just 1 point ahead of Sam Bird now, but Nelson Piquet has brought himself into championship contention with that win. He sits just 10 points behind Lucas de Grassi, but it looks likely that it's going to be between de Grassi and Bird. De Grassi, former Sean Connery Motors driver, and Sam Bird, former Horizon driver, and Nelson Piquet, the former Andrew Racing driver. So now we move on to the final round of the FF3M Championship, Race 1. And the championship has been hotly contested between James Clark and Mattia Alfonsi. They've pretty much just dominated it. I think they've won the last, between them, they have won since round 4 actually, at Monte Carlo. And unsurprisingly, the two share the front row, with Clark on pole position ahead of Alfonsi. Farina starts 3rd ahead of Nolan Bryant. Then we got Vino Kiminen 5th and Chuck Bucknam. Might recognise some names from the Young Drivers test. Harrison Evans starts 7th ahead of Jonas Meyer. Then we got Francesco Russo 9th ahead of Mason Taylor in 10th. Row 6 sees Alexander McDonald and Mario da Silva. And then row 7 we have got Jay Fulmer ahead of Diego Berti. Row 8 will see João Vitor Oliveira and Joseph Allen fight it out between those two, and then Javier Souza, the FJR Young Driver test, ahead of Masanori Shido, Keijo Sakamoto and Bram de Boer on row 10, and then completing the grid we have got Jonas Muller and Santino Garcia. So waiting the start, we've got the 3 red lights, 4 red lights, 5 red lights, and the usual long pause before. The 5 red lights go out, and a good start from Clark as Alfonsi got an even better one, but it's a good one from Farina from the 3rd on the grid. But it's Alfonsi who takes the lead from James Clark going round the first series of corners, just one of them. It's effectively a straight, but these corners they do exist. Clark having a go back at Alfonsi going down the straight before the braking zone into the treacherous Lisboa corner. He's inside of Alfonsi, outbraking the Italian into the first corner, and that is the lead for James Clark. Nolan Bryant, there's an accident further back. That is Farina. Or is it Harrison Evans? It's Harrison Evans who has crashed out, and there's another driver stranded. Bit difficult to tell. I am a bit unrehearsed with these particular cars. I do know that the green ones are run by Javier Souza and Santino Garcia. But let's see that replay. Harrison Evans, 3 wide going into Lisboa. That is not recommended. And he's just driven straight on. That is on the marbles. And Jonas Meyer getting caught up in that as well with Diego Berti. Here's Alexander McDonald. And he's struck a tyre and he's crashed out as well. That is an unfortunate mistake from McDonald. As through goes Javier Souza to take 20th position. So 2 retirements already, Harrison Evans and McDonald. But it is James Clark at the front of the field from Matteo Alfonsi. Nolan Bryant 3rd ahead of Farina, Kiminen, Bucknam, Taylor and Russo completing the top 8. Confirmation of Harrison Evans' accident at Lisboa corner. As through the top series of corners goes James Clark. And there's confirmation of Alexander McDonald's retirement as well. Through the tight left hairpin, but even tighter Melco coming up. In fact, we've gone past that already, now into the penultimate corner, and look at the lead that James Clark has got. And in the FF3M series, the championship winner is guaranteed a drive in FF2M no matter what. But the next 4 or so positions, they'll have the option to compete in FF3M, and I would say that they're likely to. 2 minutes, the fastest lap here, so they're actually slower than the FGT3 cars. That's quite interesting. So despite battling for the championship, Clark and Alfonsi didn't participate in the Young Drivers Test because they weren't eligible for whatever reason. Vaino Kiminen was, and he participated with the Tornado team, and I believe Alessandro Farina was also present at the test with Gojira. Javier Souza, as mentioned, was with FJR. Chuck Bucknam was with Mitchell. So, for a new front wing, there's Jonas Meyer. And that pretty much spells the end of any hope for points for the German. But 12.2 second stop for the German. And he's just going to use this as a well-publicised test session. So there's Clark now on his penultimate lap, with Matteo Alfonsi 2.8 seconds now, but look at the lead that both of them have pulled out over the rest of the field. Nolan Bryant sits in 3rd position. Nolan Bryant's the race 2 winner of the Aragon race. That was back in round 2 of the series. And Farina and Kiminen separated by less than a second, so that battle is not quite finished just yet. There is Kiminen, there is Bucknam. There's Francesco Russo holding the final points position. And there's a brief look at Masanori Shido in 12th position. Appears to be a teammate of Chuck Bucknam. And he's pulling off, actually. That is an issue for the Japanese driver. And it's good handbrake on that, but disappointing result for the Japanese driver nonetheless. And the marshal's taking an age to get to the stricken Japanese driver. There's one. Now, what is the diagnosis with these usually reliable FF3M machines? It's a gearbox problem. So that's unlucky. And here we are having a look at, it's either Souza or Garcia. I imagine it was Santino Garcia, because, yeah, you can see further back there's the second green blaze machine of Javier Souza. So there's a battle between Garcia and the driver chasing him. I'm trying to work out who that is. Again, I'm a bit unrehearsed. It's Joseph Allen who is chasing Santino Garcia into Lisboa. He's alongside, under brakes, and that is a position gained for Joseph Allen. Nearly missing the apex, but managing to miss the wall. And now we're on 2 laps remaining, so these FF3M races at Macau are a bit longer. And this will do Clark's championship quite a bit of good. Holds just a 3-point lead over Mattia Alfonsi. And if you manage to score more points than your championship rival, you must be doing a very good job. Friends with Benjamin Pryor is James Clark. They grew up together in the Cheshire, Anglesey, Wales area, and they raced together at the Anglesey circuit. At the moment, Benjamin Pryor is in FF2M. He did race in the FGT3 series for a bit before getting the call up to race for STV Racing from Estoril until the end of the season. Pryor will remain with STV alongside Cristobal Alvarez, the exciting young Uruguayan driver who scored points on his debut at Barcelona. That should be quite an interesting lineup. And will Clark be joining them come the FF2M season's 2015 season? I suspect so, because he's leading the championship and leads this race. If he can repeat this in race 2, he'll be guaranteed the drive in the FF2M series for 2015. Just spotting the turn-in for that particular corner, and you can see the car sinking into the ground as it grips through the uphill corner. Just 4 more corners to go now, or 4 proper corners. There's one of them, into the Melco hairpin. You can see cranes in the background, but Clark's not interested in that. He's interested in negotiating a hairpin that is even tighter than Lowe's in Monte Carlo. So a few more kinks before 2 more proper corners for James Clark to negotiate. There's one of them. And it dramatically widens as well, so plain sailing here as long as you keep it on the road through R Bend. And it's going to be James Clark who takes race 1 victory at Macau, extending his lead over Mattia Alfonsi, who comes home in second for Bellini Racing. And I'm fairly sure that Nolan Bryant will come home third. Indeed he does, but 16 seconds off the win in the end. Alessandro Farina takes 4th ahead of Vino Kiminen, Chuck Bucknam 6th with Mason Taylor 7th, and Francesco Russo completing the top 8. And in some of the lesser positions, Mario Da Silva 9th, João Vitor Oliveira in 10th, and some retirements as well, as we saw Masanori Shido suffer a transmission problem, probably gearbox, to do quite a lot of gear shifts at the circuit. And then the 2 drivers that crashed out, Alexander McDonald and Harrison Evans. So James Clark now holds a 10-point lead over Mattia Alfonsi, with Alessandro Farina 3rd and Vino Kiminen 4th. Looks as if the top 4 will be secure, or at least safe from Mason Taylor. But who will win the championship between Clark and Alfonsi? Interesting to find out in race number 2. You can see some of the positions further back as well. Some unfortunate drivers not to have scored any points include Joseph Allen, Keiji Sakamoto, Jonas Muller, Masanori Shido and Santino Garcia. So that concludes Day 1's action of the Macau Grand Prix. We shall see you for Day 2, where we'll be covering Race 2 of FF4M Nippon, FF3M and FGT3. We'll see you then.